Are we ready? It's
Hold on, let me get to record. Okay, we are recording and we are live.
Okay. Good evening. The meeting of the board is now called to order at 7:01 p.m. Before we begin tonight's meeting, if everyone can please turn off their electronic devices during the meeting and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Cindy.
Second, Bill.
Okay, so wait a minute, 1 second. So the first item on the agenda, or the only item on the agenda, is the discussion of the reopening plan for 2021. Charlie?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, welcome everybody. So this has been a whirlwind of the past month, few weeks. We received our documentation from the state in terms of what we need to do. Districts were given 10 weeks in order to get a plan solidified and to have superintendents go on to the portal and click all the assurances that districts need to assure that we're going to have in the plan, and then to post the plan. And having the plan posted on the website in such a way that it can be modified as we go along, because there are things that can change. There could be procedures that we are told need to be different. There could be questions that are asked that we need to address and to possibly expand on. So that is what we did. When we got together and started looking at what we were going to do, we first started with sending out a survey to the parents to talk to them about how they felt remote learning happened before, while we were during COVID from March until June. So this is sort of answering one of the questions that the board had. So one of the things that we did was the board had sent me a list of questions. So we've got replies to those questions. And then we also were getting questions from community members, and we also have that posted up on the website also. So one of the things we wanted to be able to seek input from the parents. So that was the first thing that we did. And then we also have a reopening at lscsd.org email that parents or anybody can use to send us any questions they might have. So we took that information that the parents had, and then we got together with our teachers and our stakeholders through virtual meetings during that third week in July. Taking a look at putting together the plan that we had, and then asking them questions about, what they feel might need to be improved, what needs to be in the plan, and moving forward. So we put the plan together using that information that we got from all the stakeholders, including questions and input from parents online. And now that the plan is up, we're having a second round of discussions with all the stakeholders, Teamsters, teachers, everybody that is working in with the district. And of course, we've also invited board members to attend and try and hear what's going on in those meetings to see what we might need to tweak or improve on. So when you look at it in terms of broad strokes plan, we looked at the big picture and what we needed to do. And now that it's out there, we can tweak that as we go along in terms of what we might need to add. So when you talk about assembling a district-wide committee, we kind of wanted to include everybody. And in that short time frame, we felt it was difficult to try and pick and choose who might be on a committee. So we wanted to hear from everybody. And we took those questions and those concerns, and we wove that into the plan that we put together. So let's see. So we're also going to be posting and different types of videos and things that are already up on the website to be able to explain some of the things that people might have questions with. Today you might have seen on the news on Channel 4 where they showed what a classroom might look like in a social distance model. And we're also looking at having some two-way communication with parents via community chats on Zoom and Facebook Live and other types of media that we can have available to us. For those people who do not readily have internet access, we'll be doing robocalls and giving them a way to be able to link up with us to ask questions if they might have in terms of calling in or possibly even emailing us through their phone. So that's sort of the answer to the first question of how the decision was made not to assemble a district-wide committee to work on the reopening plan. But I can still open that up if you want to further discuss.
Well, I have a question, Charlie. So I guess we had I don't know if we just had a misunderstanding or if we had a miscommunication, because I thought at one point we were talking about putting together a committee. So did the plan change or did we just misunderstand?
Well, we had talked about putting together a committee, and then we looked at it. We didn't feel we had enough time to do small committees, so we opened it up to everybody. So like in our minds, I think as a district team, like everybody was on our committee in terms of giving input, because sometimes it's difficult to ask a person to be on a committee because then they feel the pressure of representing everybody. And for those of you that have been in some of the meetings, you know that some people ask more questions than others, which is fine. But we wanted to be able to give everybody a voice. So that's kind of the reason why we went that way. We wanted to be like more inclusive. So our committee was like a committee
Sure,
of,
no, and I can appreciate that. I can definitely appreciate you casting a wide net to make sure that we're getting as much input as possible. I do wonder if that makes it a little bit bulkier and a little bit more difficult to streamline communication. What are we going to do moving forward? Is there going to be a district-wide committee established? Are we going to turn an existing committee like safety or something into these conversations? How are we going to keep a continuous conversation going? You know, as we get ready for school, as school gets underway, what is that communication going to look like?
Sure. So go ahead, Melissa.
No, I just wanted to say, you know, when we started having our first committees with all of our slice groups, we did ask them if they would like to be on a committee. And what happened is, for me personally, I became overwhelmed with the response. And the concern became picking and choosing, because that is a worry for some, that we pick certain people and not others and so forth. And so we thought that the first round, we asked pretty solid questions. We asked, you know, what are you excited about? What are you thinking about when you're coming back? We asked them, what worries you? So that we could make sure that if it was something that goes in a plan, we could do that. And then what else do you want to ask, or what are you wondering about? And so from there, the primary theme for us was safety. And safety really belonged for us to start with the cleaning. And that's where John and the facilities team came in. And that's where we had to hone in. All of the districts that are around us, we all came up with the same instructional plan around hybrid. The only difference is we all came to it in a different way with different committees. Dan's plan for a safety committee, I believe we were looking at the second week of August, because we'll know from the governor what has to happen. And we believe that we'll have a firm feel of what we're supposed to do. So that's coming. We started our second round of teachers, as you know. I met with my group today, and I asked them, does this work for you? Would you like to continue to meet this way? All hands down, 100% want to meet about every 2 weeks. I said, is 1 week too much? 2 weeks, they've told me 2. And so my recommendation will be that tomorrow to our committee, that are our administrators, that we continue to do these cycles of every 2 weeks. They ask me everything, and they ask some really good things, not things that would go in the plan, but rather just implementation things. And some things I don't know, and some things I know. And that's, the journey we're all going to take together. So that's kind of big picture. Where we are right now, they like the inclusive model, at least my team. So I just wanted to share that of where we are. I'm trying to figure out if we do put a committee together, what would be different. I talked to a colleague at a district who had a district-wide committee, and she said the people on the committee said it didn't really matter in the big picture at the end, because we had to follow the governor's guidelines and we do what we have to do. And all of us came up with a hybrid model. So it was just interesting to hear, a different story. So I just wanted to share that.
I think no, and I appreciate that. And I certainly am not trying to force a committee if what you're doing is working better, if that's what people want. I mean, it's some extra work for administrators, but if administrators are willing to do it, I'm all for that, because as we said before, you're casting a wide net. And you're getting more feedback. I think the main reason why you guys keep hearing me say committee is because to me, it's a vehicle for communication. And I'm especially concerned about communication right now. Talk about building the plane in the air. I mean, there's still things that aren't clear about the guidance. Budget things aren't clear. There are so many question marks in this. And this is such a big, heavy lift. It's extremely important to me, and I'm sure to everyone else, that our communication is tight, that we are all having the same information and the same message at the same time. And I think that's a heavy lift. So that's kind of why you hear me keep talking about committee, because to me, that just made sense for ease of communication. But as far as gathering input, I think the groups are great. I've sat in on 2 so far. Teachers ask a lot of smart questions and things that I never would have thought of. So I'm certainly not trying to push a structure that isn't going to work. But then we need to work together as a group to make sure that our communication is on point.
No, I agree with you. Charlie and Jean and I met originally to talk about the communication plan. And even though we all walked away with some pretty good ideas, it's still not flowing the way that I think any of us want it to. Part of it is just the amount of information. And, last week was, to get the plan done and stuff, that took over. And so it's not an excuse, it's just what happened. And so we know now, we talked a little bit more today about, I said to Jane what I would like to see more often, at least visibly online. And then Charlie and I talked about different ways with Dan about different ways we can pump out different information. So I send letters to the staff from the administrative team. It's a routine that I developed during COVID. I'm not doing it as often. So tonight I wrote one to send tomorrow. We were talking about we should have something daily that we push to you guys as a group. Just here are things that are happening, just even if it's just 3 sentences, just so you kind of have a feel of that. And so we're kind of just, we're not that I don't feel settled. I am not going to probably feel settled until COVID goes away totally. But I feel that we can wrap our heads now that the plan is there, and we can start making updates and listening to people again, because that's more important than what's on paper. It's listening and implementation. So I feel confident that we will be better at that this week.
Am I understanding correctly that there was very significant interest in a, if you want to call it the main committee or district-wide committee? So
Yeah,
of interest, there was significant interest, correct?
there was. I mean, there's some groups that met. Remember, we each meet with different groups, but my group of the arts, I think I had 8. And then other groups had 0, but then others had, 4 or 5. We were getting really big, and it's hard to pick. People are, if I don't get picked, they feel, you wonder why and stuff. And the model seemed to be working because we had a kind of what I call a note catcher, where we were all gathering the information and putting in there our key ideas. I looked today, I was trying to remember, I think it was almost 100 pages worth of notes, but the theme was clear, safety. So when we talked about what are you worried about, we knew we were on the right path when we wrote the safety piece, and we know there's still parts we can add. So I can't remember the exact number. I don't know if I ever actually counted, but I got overwhelmed after the amount of people that were in. So yeah.
Well, I'm
was
glad
good.
there's that much interest. And I also like the idea if you're able to do, even if it's a short daily email in order to update us on what's going on, because I can say being out in the community now, obviously it's reduced now with the pandemic going on. At the same time, there's very few times that I'm outside the house that I'm not asked by somebody what the plans are. And we know the plan that went out the other day, but we don't have a whole lot of answers to give people.
Right. And I'm not always sure that we do either. I think I said, I don't know today more than not. I have a series of questions to propose to the group tomorrow to say we've got to begin tackling this, not impossible questions, just things that I can't remember. Like maybe we talked about it, once for John. I can't remember something he told me about the spray. And then once I get that information, I'm going to put that in the plan because that's plan worthy. And then there's some things that we just talk about that aren't really for the plan. They're just, what will it look like? And is it a building thing or is it more plan thing? So we're beginning to wrap our head around that. Did a lot in 10 days, met with every constituent and wrote a plan. And I'm very proud of that. And now I know there's other things we can do better. And so we're really striving for that, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
I want to note, Melissa, the meetings that I've attended so far have been terrific. So whatever organizational pattern you've got with that going on, facilitators are knowledgeable to a point. I mean, a lot of times they have to say, that's a great question. I'll write it down and bring it up at our next meeting. But that's good. At least people know that they've been heard, and there's a lot of great information coming out of these meetings. I just talked to Charlie about a bunch of stuff that came out of the ones that I was at today. Really good questions. I'm very impressed with the desire to really make sure everything is safe and well done, and there's procedures that people can follow and that sort of thing. So great job with the team putting it together.
I second that. Yeah, really informative. Charlie, do you want to keep going through your list or do you just want us to start?
Well, that's what I thought. I thought that I would go through the list, and then if there's something else that comes up, now I'm not going to, because I sent the responses to the board. And what we're going to do after the meeting and tomorrow is to go through the questions and the answers that we gave to you. If there's anything new that we need to add, we will put that in there. If there's more clarification that you might need, we'll put that in there. And then we will also post these on the website so that people that are viewing today will be able to have the same answers that you have too. So that's another way to pass along that communication, because some of the questions that you have sent me I'm sure are some of the same questions that they're going to have. So, excuse me. So one of the questions is, what do we mean when we say students will periodically complete screening questions? So in the guidance, it doesn't really define periodically. So what we're looking at is, at least initially, we'll be screening all the students, any student that has a temperature, and we'll talk about that later, how temperature checks are going to happen. That's the next question. When we have those kids go down to the nurse's office, they will go through a list of questions that you ask in terms of, have you been around somebody with COVID past 14 days? So there's a series of questions that were in the guidance that we'll ask the students about when we have them down there. So we will look towards what periodically means in terms of actually helping with having help from the community. So parents are supposed to, and we'll make a video about this too, how to screen your child at home to kind of ensure that they're coming to school without any kind of a issue medically. So we're going to have a partnership with the community, to work with us so that they're doing the right things at home to make sure that their child is safe to come to school. And for staff members, they have to fill out a daily questionnaire that asks those questions, and we've got an app that they can do that online. So we'll have all that information from staff. So we'll know if a staff member was out of the state, if they've been in contact with somebody that's tested positive, if they've been in contact with somebody that that has COVID if they have a temperature of over 100. So we'll have that information from the staff members. You know, for the students, it's a little bit different. So we're going to look at that and see exactly what periodically means. Should we take, you know, randomly 2 or 3 kids, you know, from different classrooms on a daily basis to like kind of cover our bases as we go along. So we're still looking to see exactly how we might want to do that to try to get more students screened in terms of asking those questions.
Maybe done online too, at home. The parents
Yeah,
fill out.
yeah.
You fill out a form online at home before the child leaves.
Well, in the summertime, what we're doing, there is a form that the parents are using at home right now with the summer school students. So we're looking at expanding that in such a way that it's manageable. Even with half the kids, half the time, you know, we're still talking 1,000 or 1,000, 1,100 students coming into the district, you know, on an everyday basis type of thing. So,
Yeah, Carla, we have to, we're at the beginning, before all of the plan began, we knew we were going to do the screening a bit. So we're waiting for guidance to see how often. So periodically is a regional thing we're all talking about. We were talking about weekly. And then what happens if the little ones come in with no paper that says it? Because some people said they just prefer paper over an app.
Right.
And then like, would we call the kid? We're trying to understand what to do. Do we call the kid into the nurse and then do it with the parent on the phone, or how do you do that so that we do follow that mandate? So our nurses are guiding us through this as well. One of them has worked through at a hospital just until recently, so she's been very good with lots of guidance. So the nurses meet tomorrow, and I think that's one of the subjects.
That is, and Melissa's right. There is no definition of periodically right now. So part of what we're being cognizant of is we want the kids to feel comfortable when they return to school, and we don't want them freaked out. We don't want nurses pulling kids randomly in for to fill out questionnaires or take temperatures or whatever. So we're aware of that. Right now, we'll screen the kids that either are sent to the nurse's office or go to the nurse's office, or as they can, but we'll work on that and develop it as we go. But there's not the requirement to check every kid or do that questionnaire on every kid every day, because that's Dr. Gluzzo's right. That's 1,100 questionnaires. And if we're going to gather that information, then somebody needs to look at it. And that's an awful lot of information to look at while we're trying to operate and get the school back up, even with 50% of the kids.
That's what I was thinking, online at home, you know, if they can get to it. If the majority can, I mean, this is just a suggestion, not from me, it was from the law conference that I went to. They suggested that. And then the school would deal with the ones who didn't complete it that morning, you know, didn't finish or didn't do it. It would lessen the numbers.
You're still going to have a high number, to Dan's point, that you're going to have to deal with. So this is kind of leading us into the temperature checks, into the thermal imaging systems. Can we talk more about that, Charlie? Can you tell us, are we going to have those at every building?
yes.
At all the
So,
entrances?
yes. So we ordered 17 of them today. There'll be 2 at all the elementary buildings, 2 at the transportation department, 3 at the middle school, and 4 at the high school. So
I'm sorry, are those aidable?
Well, we don't know if they're aidable or not, but we've got a really good price on them, like almost half price. So I think we did pretty well shopping around. And these thermal scanners are really cool. You walk the students in, even if you have a group of 10 all together, it basically, as they walk through, you can see their face on the screen, and it shows whether or not they're green or red. And there's no identifying information in terms of who the student is. Doesn't keep track of any of that information. So we will have someone assigned with a laptop, with the thermal scanner at those entrances, watching kids as they come through. As they're coming through, we will periodically have a student or 2 step aside and then do a secondary check, or if they come up red, but do a secondary check with a handheld thermal scanner, because sometimes they can be overheated a little bit, and the temperature can go up and down. And then if they still are high with the thermal scanner, with the handheld scanner, we'll have them go through the fast scanner again, and if it's still high, we'll have someone bring them down to the nurse's office. Well, she'll do the screening, talk to the parent, because it could just be where a child has a temperature but has none of the other signs of COVID. So it could just be a normal cold, so that's where the screening becomes important for the nurses to do those screenings for kids that might have a temperature. And it's also for staff. So there'll be a scanner at the staff entrances also. So the staff will have to come through and they'll also be scanned. Little bit more on their honor, I guess, for the staff in terms of them coming in. I would think that 100% of our staff members will let us know if they walk through and they have a temperature. But
Visitors also.
And visitors, right? So that's right. And we have them on carts on purpose so that they can be movable instead of having them hardwired to the wall, because you never know, one might go down, you have to change. So we want to be able to have that flexibility. So maybe if we're able to have some kind of a activity at school where there's, I don't know, 100 people, we might be able to move it to another part of the building where the people are coming in. So we want to have that flexibility. So that order went in today, and we should have them up and running by the start of the school year.
Kathleen's question, right now there is no separate aid on there, but I'm gathering all costs for everything we're buying COVID related. And I have filed the initial paperwork online to start a FEMA claim. So I'll be claiming anything and everything that's eligible for FEMA through that claim process.
Great, Dan. Charlie, we talked, you addressed this in your questions because we talked about students who have to isolate, and somebody asked if we have multiple students who have to isolate at the same time. You did say that secondary rooms are identified if we have to isolate more than one student. That's working out okay. I just think of places like JTWA, and I know they're
Right.
so tight on space.
Right.
But you're finding that that's not an issue?
Well, that's one of the things that we're working on at the building level. So depending upon the building, some have more spaces than others, or we might have to have some makeshift spaces. So take JTWA, you might be able to use that big auditorium space, the gym, and partition that off to have several little spaces if we need to. But then of course we'll have to have supervision there, for somebody, with the children. So it will be different in different buildings. Depending upon the time, we might be able to use the cafeteria if the parents are picking up before cafeteria starts. So each principal, I think they're pretty creative in determining like where they might be able to find a nook and cranny to have somebody with the child while the parent is coming to pick them up.
Charlie, would we, if there's obviously a reason that we're isolating the child till they can be picked up, would that area have to be deep cleaned then before anyone else enters it?
Well, that's a good question. It depends upon what happens after the screening, right? So it will be cleaned. In terms of deep cleaning, everything will be sanitized and sprayed down with the materials that we have. So that's why as soon as if we have to have a student go to the nurse, there'll be somebody with them. So they're really not going to be touching anything along the way. They'll be in the hallway, and then they'll be right to the nurse's office. And for the most part, we're leaving doors open but locked so that students can walk into a room without having to touch a doorknob. So basically they'll be, in the foyer and then in the nurse's office, and then the nurse will make sure that her area is cleaned, before other kids come back in.
I could just point out a couple things. I don't know, Charlie, if you still have the video, but if not, we can look in our email. We'll forward you. Charlie did a video of the sample, and I'll look for it and try to send it so you can see. But we had a vendor come in and show us it, and it was a good video, so you get a feel of what it looks like. So we'll get that to you. And then on our main page, Chris Cook and the team at the high school did a little model of what it would look like. They didn't have the temperature screener, but that's on there just so you can get a visual of what it would look like if we do have someone with a temperature that we want to pick up, because we're going to do a little bit of calibration along the way just to double check at the beginning for sure, and not pull all kids aside just some kids along with anybody else who shows a temperature.
So let's see. They kind of answered the next question about if a student has symptoms, will they report to the nurse and then isolate until they can be picked up? So we answered that question.
As soon as someone, will it be recommended that they go get tested? I know we started talking about, the governor said we might have to test at schools, but let's say we're not doing that. We recommend that they go get tested. Do we tell them where they should go, or does that come from the DOH?
Well, again, I think it depends upon what happens after the screening, right? Again, you can have a temperature, but it doesn't mean you have any of the other symptoms that are related to COVID. So
we advise them to contact their healthcare professional and then follow their instructions if they want them tested, if they want to see them or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
So if we have a student, let's just say that does have a temperature, doesn't have any other symptoms, we recommend that you contact your pediatrician. Are we telling them, if the pediatrician doesn't think they need to be tested, do they have to be fever free for 24 hours, 48 hours before we're going to let them come back? Or do they come back the next day if they then don't have a temperature?
Or do they have to bring a note?
Well, generally, if a child has a temperature on a normal basis, it's usually that 24-hour kind of a wait time to see whether or not you still have a temperature. So we'll be working in conjunction with the parents and the nurse in terms of what their next steps are going to be.
Yeah,
Will the school physician have to sign off on a return to school?
Not for that.
No, I don't.
No. No, I think, that pre-COVID temperature has always been a thing, right? You stay home until you're temperature free. That's, I think, even in the protocols of things we send home, especially for the little ones. The thing we try not to get too caught up with, and I don't want to downplay it, but I could sit here right now and have COVID and not have a temperature. So we have parents who are worried that their kids will have seasonal allergies and we'll be sending them home because they sneezed. And so we're going to follow the screening protocols. If we're getting nervous or something's not working right for our nurses, we have direct contact to the Department of Health. They've been wonderful with everything. And so, the temperature screening is just one thing we're trying to do, but ultimately it's social distancing, the mask, washing your hands, more so than anything else in my head. And so that's why I just am really cautious, and parents are pleased to hear that we have the screening, but understand that temperature isn't always the key. So I just wanted to share that with you, that we just have to follow our normal protocols according to the Department of Health right now.
Melissa, can you just, I'm sorry, reiterate what you just said? You do have a dedicated contact at the health department, or like a hotline or something, so you do have somebody to call if you need to? Okay, great.
Yeah, I actually got to call this summer for just something weird that was going on that I wasn't sure what to do. And I'll tell you, like, after that, I just felt so confident in Erie County right now. I just thought, and I'm not easily impressed, but boy, she just explained things to me. Even once I had her on the phone, I asked her a few other questions, and I'm thankful that we have them. So I just am going to hope that experience is always the same. And I trust that process right now.
And I agree, Melissa. And I mean, that's part of my fear as well, is that we're going to have multiple kids every day. Anytime someone sneezes or sniffles or whatever, they're just going to be sent down to the nurse and sent home. If we're going to worry about every little sniffle and every little sneeze, I mean, I think it might be overwhelming. So.
Right.
It's just going to be a matter of time for us to get used to it. So when I first came, anytime I had to cough, felt like I had to say I don't, I felt like I had to say I don't have COVID or something. But after you're here for a while and you get accustomed to what's happening around you and you're in this new scenario, I think we'll be, good stewards of watching what we're supposed to be doing. And we might be a little overzealous at first, and that's okay. And then we'll just become accustomed to what we're supposed to be doing with masks, social distancing. Those are the big things, washing our hands. So.
Right. So after the screening, if there is COVID symptoms, then we will talk to the parent about talking to their pediatrician and then letting us know, what had happened. Because sometimes the pediatrician might say, we don't want you to get tested right now. Maybe just stay home for a few days. The parent lets us know that so that we know that child is staying home so that we keep in contact with that parent. And the same with the staff member. That's one of the questions. In consulting with the staff member, they go to their doctor and the doctor will let them know what their plan of action should be. And then we would have something from the doctor saying it's okay for them to be able to come back to work if it happens to a staff member. Because generally, sometimes even if you have those symptoms, they might tell you to wait a day or two. And if we need to know that, we might have to have that person find a sub for that person for a day or two, and then maybe they'll have to get tested and maybe they won't. So it really depends upon each individual case. So what's the protocol if a student or teacher tests positive? So if we have a confirmed case, the nurse will let the principal know and they'll let us know, and we'll contact the Erie County Department of Health to get further guidance from them in terms of what it is we will need to do in terms of closing down a classroom or possibly closing down a section of a building or closing down a bigger area, depending upon where that person might have been. So each case will be on a case-by-case basis. We might have to, let's say, immediately lock down an area of the building for 24 hours, and then we will work internally to have a secondary space for that particular, if it's a group of kids, or so that can be, it could settle and be cleaned again and then wait the 24 hours to be able to use that classroom again. So it really does depend upon each individual case and what the prescription is going to be for that particular scenario that happens on a day-to-day basis.
When you think about it, generally, by the time we get notified that there's a positive case, it's probably going to be well past that 24-hour period. The 24-hour period is if we find out right away, we close the room down for 24 hours to let as much of the virus die as possible before we send our folks in to clean. If we're notified after that 24-hour period, the room's probably been cleaned already. We'll go back in and probably re-clean it just to be sure. But we're going to be doing heavy cleaning every night. We're not looking at once a week deep cleaning. We realize that if we've got different kids and different people coming in different days, we've got to clean every day. So that's pretty much what we're committing to.
We talk a little bit about, we talked about this on one of the slice groups the other day, but I kind of want to address it as a group. So are we doing any kind of cleaning? Are teachers going to be required to do any kind of cleaning in between periods? I don't see how they can clean a whole classroom in 3 or 4 minutes. I know we've had conversation about have a set of green desks and white desks, right? So first period sits in the green desk, second period sits in the white desks, but you're still going to have to clean, or will you have to clean before the next round of students come in? How are we going to handle that?
Okay, go ahead, Melissa. No, go ahead. You gotta turn your mic on.
Sorry, I bumped it. We've been thinking a lot about it. The original reason that the materials started going into classrooms or being prepared for classrooms is during our first initial round of meetings, they told us that that's what they worried about, was the safety of having things that they were able to use in between classes. So right now, I just say we're all hands on deck. If they don't feel comfortable wiping down the desk in between periods at the middle school and high school level, then, I have an administrative team who's willing to go help with that. We're half the kids, half the time. The doors are open, so they're not touching handles. And I'm asking us to all pitch in to wipe off desks because John's Cleaners cannot keep up with this. Desk and chairs. It's a spray and a wipe. Jean Dillon and a whole team at the business office every day wipes down our whole office just because that makes us all feel secure. I have access to it for my office. If someone comes in and sits with me, I wipe off the table when I'm done. So I'm comfortable with it. So if anybody's not comfortable, I am certainly available to help throughout the day. And so is our administrative team. We've talked about this deeply. And so for the most part, most teachers are telling us that they are okay with it. It's a quick dry, if John can tell me if I'm wrong, but quick dry, wipe it off. And it's a 1 minute kill, John. I'm good. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I always say that because that to me, I just know it needs to sit a minute.
Right.
And 4 minutes between classes, at least at the high school level. And then if I'm elementary and I have the same kids all day, even if I want to wipe it down, right? Because kids are germy, right? We're all germy. So if I want to wipe it down while they go to phys ed, I'm going to wipe it down. And so that's kind of where we are with it. And I'm just going to ask people what they're comfortable with. I want to have a respectful environment for all of us. And if they're not comfortable, then we'll work with them to work around it.
I think that's great to offer to work with them. So is it going to be a requirement that they get cleaned at some point and then you're offering assistance to fulfill that requirement? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we have to. We don't have enough help at the high school. They have to change classes. There isn't an easy way to do this. If we want kids to have a school experience that's full and rich with all the specials and everything, and art or anything that's hands-on knows that they have to keep utensils separate, and even just setting them aside is fine for so many hours and days and stuff, and we're working through that. And then, but we do have to clean in between. That's a guarantee for our kids. We have to do that. And we're all willing to help with that.
Can I
So-
expand a little bit on that for you? So in talking administratively and you know, with other districts and things like that, we've developed our own little wipes buckets. We put them together ourselves down in Central Store. I've purchased the buckets. They have the special hole in the top. You pull the towels out. We have the materials already on hand that do a wonderful job. I've purchased enough buckets with wipes for every single classroom in the district. I'm going to provide every single classroom in the district a bucket of those wipes. Whether they use them or not, they're there as a tool for them to do that. We've also provided in every single classroom hand sanitizer, you know, the alcohol hand sanitizer that we now have permission to use. So they're all the great tools that they need are there, and we are willing to help no matter what. So that's part of what we do.
I would add that it initially, the folks in our office, when I asked for the cleaning supplies, said, "What, you're going to make us clean?" And then about a half an hour later, they realized, look, if I spray my desk and I clean, I know it's been clean. And they even do the tables in between. If somebody comes in to fill out paperwork, when they get up, the person gets up and leaves, they spray the table down and wipe it all off. It's all done in between every visitor to the office, which is exactly what we need. So they caught on pretty quickly. And I think the rest of the staff will realize that too.
But in a classroom, you're working on, 12 desks, 12 chairs. That's going to take a lot of more wipes than just one. You can't use just one wipe for the whole thing. You've got to use several, so that we have enough wipes to refill the buckets after a couple of days.
There's 300 wipes in a bucket.
Okay.
You'd be surprised at how far these go. They're a little bit larger wipe than normal. It's a better material, a better application. They'll go through. You could do probably 10 desks of wipe, but whatever they use because I've backed it up in our inventory.
And we'll be doing a video on how to wipe down desks and chairs to put up on the website and for teachers as part of their training.
So obviously these tasks are never anything that could have been planned for before. Where do we stand staff-wise, John? Is this something your staff can handle?
Not in between classes, Mike, but after class, absolutely. Absolutely. I've
And
come up,
after hours?
we have a protocol, a cleaning protocol. We've amended it. I've amended it with my staff during occupancy protocol. That means when there may be staff or kids in the building. And then there's a known occupation protocol, that being knowing that somebody was in a space, no longer in the space, So they will sanitize afterward. So they'll do their normal cleaning and then go back through with the disinfectants and hit the key spots that everybody knows you got to hit. Door handles, phones, tops of desks, you know, touch spots, anything that you would consider someone's hands coming in contact with, or a congestion of people. We'll take care of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Melissa, can you tell me a little bit at the middle and high school when they are switching classes, what does that look like? Kids obviously will have masks on, but what does that look like going between classes?
Well, right now, I can't speak to that as accurately as I would like to, but now we're talking about routes and what that might look like in the hallways. John bought us these awesome stickers for the floor. We'll have to show those. They're great. And then they bought green tape that we can make into arrows. So right now that's a floor plan that our principals are working on. So it may or may not be just a one-way hallway. We're not saying they have to. They're working through that because we have half the kids and we're trying to figure out the flow of that. And that's a detail that the building will work through. So when we get ready for tours, if we're opening, then you'll be able to see some of that when you come in.
So I'm thinking like one way up one side of the hall, the other way down the other side of the hall or something like that. But I'm assuming we may have to allow additional time between classes to move these kids, especially if they can only go one way to get to where they have to go.
Absolutely.
We
Absolutely.
talked about lockers yesterday when we were on with Chris Cook, and I forgot to ask Eric Rydell the same question today, but they're talking about alternating lockers. So if you have the, green team or whatever we're going to call them is there on Thursday, Friday, whatever it is, the lockers will be every other. So you don't have students right next to each other. So that's an additional step that I know Chris Cook is taking. Not sure if Eric Rydell is taking it as well. Melissa's saying yes. So that helps.
Okay.
So I believe we talked about what triggers the result of a school closing. It really would depend upon the number of positive cases and direction from the Department of Health. Our tracking procedure for the staff in terms of, being out of state would be through that screening tool. And then as we talked earlier, we'll develop a more efficient way to be able to screen students to be able to keep track of that as best as we can.
So what about in the meantime, Charlie, if we have somebody because, their student's going to have 3 days off in a row or whatever it's going to be, they want to go see grandma out of state and that state is one of the ones where they're required to quarantine.
Right.
Do we have any method to try to track that? Are we asking them to communicate with
Yes,
us?
that's good. Right. So what we're going to be doing through robocalls and information on the website, we're going to keep asking parents to let us know if that happens. I actually have a parent that I talked to said they're going to be going down to Florida the first week in September, and we've already discussed that the child won't come back to school until the 21st. So I think that people in the community realize what this is, and they want to keep their child safe along with other children. So that'll be something that we continually message out that we're partners in this together. And if there's something that's going on, please let us know so that we can help you to be able to provide whatever we might need to provide for you while you are waiting to come back to school if you go out of state. And again, that list is growing, right? 2 weeks ago, there was only 6 states on the list. Now there's 27 or 28. And I think Rhode Island might have just gotten added, maybe just today. So, we really do have to count on people all pulling together the way they have to give us some of that information. Let's see. So the same in terms of how do we know if they test positive? By having constant communication with those students that we've had to screen that were sick, and with those staff members, having that constant communication with them to know exactly what's going on in terms of whether or not they've had a positive test, or a negative test. There was a question about HIPAA issues, and of course HIPAA laws do have to be adhered to. And what we have found that when this kind of thing happens, people are pretty forward with the information letting us know. Again, because they want their child to be safe and they want the other kids to be safe too. So I think that the way we develop a relationship with people will really help with that give and take and getting that information from people. I know that face coverings was a big topic in a lot of the meetings, especially for some. And as you might have seen Channel 4 today, our principal at AJ Smith was on there showing what a typical class might look like with 8 kids. And she had said 8 to 10. So again, it could be 12 or 13, depending upon the size of that group. But so we're going by the notion that if there's social distance and they're sitting in their seats, they can remove their masks as long as they're social distance. And I know that there's still a little bit of a concern out there from some people about whether or not that's good enough. When we look at the guidance that we've had, it says that that's what we should do. 6 feet. If you're social distance, you can have your mask off. Now, especially for younger kids, it might be a little bit difficult for them to wear masks longer. We're getting all these lanyards for kids that will clip onto their mask so that it won't fall to the floor and it's always there. For some of the older kids, maybe they just might want to cover cover their mouth, while they're in class. So that's still something that we're working through in terms of what the guidance is. And what the comfortability level is for teachers in terms of teaching. We also have shields that we've bought for teachers where it covers your face. It's kind of like a welding shield, but it's clear. We have a couple different types, and we also have these cones that go around your neck and kind of come up like this, that go around this way to help, especially if you're working close with a child. We have ordered those plastic cubbies. They're 3-sided and they're clear, so we can use those in the classroom and in the cafeteria. So if a teacher wants to bring, especially younger kids, if they want to bring them to the semicircle table, they can sit around the table. They'll probably have to have their mask on at that time, but still, the teacher will have that clear plexiglass in front of them and they'll be able to see each other and be able to do small reading groups and those kinds of things. One of the questions was about discretion of whether or not students can remove their masks in the classroom. They're definitely going to have to build in mask breaks for kids to be able to do that. The rooms will be in such where the teacher, if they're in the front of the room, will have probably more than 6 feet away from the kids that they're teaching. If they're circulating around the room, they might ask the children or the students to put their mask up as they're circulating around the room and asking questions. So we're still kind of looking at that in terms of what it would look like in every individual classroom. But the guidance that we have now is 6 feet. As long as you're social distance, it should be okay.
So Charlie, I just want to see if we're clear on that. And I know, unfortunately, we can't be really clear on a lot of things, but that came up obviously yesterday when you and I were talking to social studies, and it came up today. Carla, I think you were there also for business today. So teachers had the question, can we mandate that a student, even if they're 6 feet apart, they have to keep their mask on the whole time? So is the answer to that question, no, a teacher can't mandate that? Or is the answer to that question, we're not sure, but hopefully we'll have an answer by the time school starts?
Well, that's a good question. To me, I would say that we follow whatever the guidance is from the Department of Health and what's healthy. And again, we're talking about half the kids, half the time. And if we're talking about that, then they're going to have to give kids a pretty long break or shorter or more breaks during the course of the period if they're going to let them take a break to be able to take the mask down. I think it needs to be worked on But we really need to follow what the Department of Health and the guidelines are so that we can be more consistent.
Hey, Charlie, on that note, I mean, I've been giving that a lot of thought. I can't get myself over the hump of trying to tell a 11-year-old he's going to wear a mask all day. I mean, this is the reason we're doing the hybrid. This is the reason we're keeping them 6 feet apart. I would like to take a more proactive stance of when they're in their seats, they can take their masks off. I think that should be our policy. I don't think it should be up to the teacher.
Right now,
I just don't see how that's going to work. And I think it's uncomfortable, and I think it makes for an awful day of elementary school.
yep. And right now, Charlie and Dan know, and John, that's my stance 100%. We have people calling and saying, I'll send my kid, but if he has to wear a mask all day, I'm not sending him. You are doing
Right.
hybrid to protect my kid, and that works. I mean, they're saying that. And I also know that's the reason we're doing the capital project is it is so hot and stifling in September and October in those rooms. And then to play that where we're going to have them wear masks all day, we cannot have them do that. If we get a teacher who says, I feel uncomfortable, the question we're going to ask back is, what can we do for you to make you more comfortable, right? So
Right.
the mask is not the answer. Do you need a shield? Do you want a barrier? We will work around that, but we have to be respectful to each other, including our children. And so some kids might want their mask on all day because that's what mom told them to do, right? And then some are like, I can't do it. It's too hot and I can't focus. So right now, our plan, and it's allowed, they don't wear their mask at their desk. If that changes, because I sometimes worry that it will, then we'll have another dilemma to deal with.
I think
So
that's
I
a
All right,
just-
thank
I
you.
wanted-
What I'm hearing
I really do.
is,
I think
what I'm
that's-
hearing is, as policy, if there's such a word, is going to be, once they're in their seats, it is our directive that they can take their masks off.
It's in our plan that explicitly too. And if it's not explicit enough, let me know and we'll fix that. I'll write that down to double check that.
I
section.
think we might need to clear up the language there because
I didn't see it, right?
both Chris Cook and Eric Rydell, I think were unsure of how to answer that question. And Eric's was just today. So I think we might need to clean up the language and do some communication.
Got it.
But
And I think
alternative-
that's a good plan. I've already been contacted by other schools after the news report tonight, asking where we bought our masks and lanyards. So obviously other schools think the same way we do, that kids should be able to take the masks off when they're in their seat.
I got a text from a parent as well that thought our masks were pretty cool. They saw it on the news.
I told Charlie after graduation, I had a few parents ask me
Fundraise, yeah.
as a fundraiser if they could buy those masks. They liked them that much.
Yeah, we're gonna look into that for sure. It's probably not difficult. We could just contact the company and have maybe the senior class if they want to do a fundraiser or something like that. Cindy, did you want to say something? Sorry.
No, it's fine. I've already said what I was gonna say, so.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's see. Hand washing. Okay, yes. We are having kids wash their hands before they eat in the cafeteria. We will do the similar type of thing for the high school and middle school students. There's a bathroom right outside the bathroom in the high school, and there's also sanitizers as they're coming into the room. So even if they weren't able to get to a sink, they'll be able to have that sanitizer to sanitize their hands as they walk through and go down into the cafeteria to take their seats. We did do a video today about cleaning your fabric mask. Melissa and I did that. That'll be coming out to a theater near you. Royalties to Lakeshore Central School District. Thank you very much. So the masks that we've purchased anyway for students, you can wash them by hand, or you can put them in the washer and the dryer, and they hold up pretty well. As you might have noticed, there's a slot in there where somebody can add an extra filter if they'd like to for even added protection. So that's a neat bonus.
I thought for a credit card. That's what I've been.
It could be for a credit card.
Yeah. No pockets needed at that point.
You mean it's not for your cell phone? I guess I misunderstood.
Oh, that's an even better. It's for one of those voice enhancers. You can put it in there. All right, cleaning protocols. Why is Monday our no report day instead of Wednesday? Other districts are using Wednesday as a break for enhanced cleaning between cohorts. When are we doing our enhanced cleaning? Okay, so there are many districts that are doing different things. I know of at least one district that's doing Friday as their day off with students. When we looked at it, we looked at least in the beginning when we had put the plan together, we were going to be starting school on our normal schedule as for September 2nd. So that would have been a Monday that they lost with Labor Day. And then you'd lose another Monday with American Heritage Day. And we also felt that having the Monday for remote for everyone also gives the teachers the ability to plan and prepare and talk with kids on Monday and get things ready for them during the week when they're in school and when they're coming and going.
Yeah, the thing that I think for me, we went back and forth between Wednesday, but John said it's irrelevant if we have teachers in the building every day, which is the plan. He said it doesn't matter what day we take because they're still going to have to clean at night. So that's really what decided for me, is if we could just do Monday because of the holidays, so we don't have to worry about kids missing instruction because we're already missing so much, that it worked for us in the big picture. So thank you, John, for you and your team for being so accommodating for that.
Kelly, was there any thought to BOCE scheduling in our scheduling?
Yes, there was. BOCES will come out with their official schedule tomorrow in terms of CTE, but I think it's going to align pretty well with the Lakeshore model in terms of when we're going to be in school in person with kids. It might be a little slightly different where if a child is supposed to go to BOCES on a day when they're not in school with us, then we'll still have to arrange for transportation for them to be there. And we'll have to talk with Perry and see how to arrange that to make sure those kids still get to go. So we're kind of like green, green, white, white for, so I'm not saying A and B, but we're green, green, white, white. So if they went A, B, A, B, we might still have to do a special run for some of those kids, but we'll see that when it comes out tomorrow, exactly how it lines up.
I have a question related to the actual teaching. So on Mondays, everybody will be remote, but the teachers will be in school. So let's say we're talking about group A and they're in school on
Tuesday and Wednesday.
The Thursday and Friday, is there any way for live streaming of the classroom so it's not remote on the Thursday and Friday, but the kids at home are actually involved in the actual lessons going on?
We're in the process of talking that now. So in some of the groups, we're asking teachers if they bring it up. They have some concerns. So we're kind of working through that a little bit about what are your worries about that. So to begin with, we're all starting with paper anyway, because we have to have the technology in school so the kids can learn the programs that we would use if we have to go full virtual. But we also, we're kind of talking about different things. We've purchased a variety of tools like Screencastify and things where teachers really like those so they could make videos to accompany different things so kids could go back. We've talked about recording lessons. So once we hear the pool, like if some groups are talking about, some are not, because some aren't worried about it all and some bring it up and say, hey, that's a worry for me, then we just have to get a feel of what that is. And then I think that's where we would have a slice group where we would look and talk to secondary teachers to say, let's really talk about this and get it a plan. Like, to me, that's a slice that we would need, not necessarily in the plan, but this is a decision we're going to have to make internally. So yes, we've talked about it. I agree with you. We need something that's video, whether it's live or not. We do need something 100%, because kids cannot teach themselves that. And that's why Monday is so powerful for us right now, to have that opportunity to keep prepping for that and preparing for their remote days.
Well, that would also help with kids who have to stay home and can't come in for whatever reason.
Yes.
If they could just attend class from afar.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
really helpful.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I personally don't have a problem because I feel like even if I was in the classroom teaching right now, I might be moving around with my mask on and the kids might only see the wall, but they can still hear me, as they're doing, I might be talking in talking about different parts of the lesson and so forth, but we have to work through that. I want to make sure people feel good about it.
Melissa,
Thank you.
did you have any conversation at all? I know that I just briefly looked at the newspaper article with the other districts, but I think it was at least Amherst for secondary levels on the days that the kids are home, they're actually going to be logging in and following their bell schedule on the days that they're home. So I'm assuming that those teachers are not necessarily, they're not repeating their lessons Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, that they're continually teaching when the kids are at home, they're logging in and getting those lessons. Have we talked about that at all? I mean, I know that's really structuring the whole day for some of these kids, but I don't know that that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing either. Again, just we're starting out the way we're starting out, and those things, we've set ourselves a target that hopefully by the third week, we know what we'll do technology wise, who's going to need it. The first week, we're collecting all of that in person because the surveys aren't working for us. We're not getting everybody. We're going to get everybody that's in school, get a survey. What do you have? And then the little ones will take it home. And then if you're on remote, we'll make some personal phone calls just to figure out what everybody has. And then we have to get to the comfort level of everybody understanding how to do these Google Meets or Zooms. That's how kids will have to log in. And once everybody's comfortable with that, then, there's nothing wrong with that to get that going. It's just that some people are uneasy about that. And I have to work through that. I'm not sure of the why. And it might just be, we just have different perceptions of what that could be. So we'll work through that for sure. Yeah, I agree.
Right. And depending upon where kids are during the day when it's remote, do they have, like if they're at a daycare, do they have access? Will they be able to actually go online at the same time as what's going on in the classroom? So that's an issue too we would need to think about.
So we're partnering with the Seneca Nation as well. They've identified, I think I want to say 12, it might be 10, but I think it's 12 locations that are Wi-Fi enabled, that if and when we're ready to do that with Gowanda, Silver Creek, and us, we're all doing a little differently, but if we can't get everybody there that's remote from the Seneca Nation, at least we might, they're with us to transport kids who need to be there, who perhaps aren't engaged or need some extra help. So we're partnering with them on that as well as for anybody who doesn't have Wi-Fi in that region.
And we're not necessarily giving any families Wi-Fi's again like we did before because we don't have that many, right?
Well,
be careful of the kids that don't have them.
Yeah, we have some. We're just kind of working through, are their locations similar? This is just a Melissa view. It's nobody else's view. I'm not representing anybody, but sometimes it's just the structure, because we talked about it a little bit today in our meeting in the tri-district, is sometimes it's that structure, getting to school. That's what gets you done. If there are people who want some structure or a place to go because they don't have Wi-Fi, I struggle with having to say to them, you can come sit in our parking lot. I mean, if I had to go sit in a parking lot to work, would I do it? Absolutely. But should I have to do it? Probably not. So we're trying to work through what are some, some places that we have in our community that are Wi-Fi enabled, that if kids needed it, and there could be some structure around that. And it might even be our buildings. We don't know how many people and where kids are going to be at. So you never know. So we're conversations are beginning, but we're trying to help everybody out in any way that we can. Because some parents say we need it. We need the structure. We need a place for our kids to go.
Can we talk about technology since we're on that? Melissa, you had been really helpful in, providing us some information. Can we talk a little bit more about, did our technology from the spring that we lent out, did that all get returned? Are we turning it around and loaning it all back out? Are we anticipating that there are going to be families who are going to struggle with technology, or I think, Melissa, you had said we were in pretty good shape in the spring, so you thought that hopefully that would carry forward into the fall. Do I have that right?
You do. So we still had Chromebooks sitting here. We did not get them all back, but Jeff and Dan have worked through a replacement plan. But we're not giving up on getting things back, but we didn't get chargers back. We've gotten broken things back. But we had plenty. We do have parents now asking today, maybe they were asking, is that a model of a Chromebook that they're going to get? They're going to do that on their own. So I can't, say with 100% what will happen, but I feel that we'll have a good start. And then if for some reason, when we do our survey and we're finding bigger gaps than we have, then we have some plans to fall back on, which may mean we have to identify a portion of our student population that would get the Chromebooks over another, and the others would be a different model. Because I think in our plan, we also want to ask a little bit about their preferences. Our primary elementary kids, parents overall so far have said they prefer the paper. And I asked them a little bit about videos or Google Meets, and they said if you could do videos even on our phone, I wouldn't even need to have my kid on tech. And then if you wanted to connect with them via Google Meet, again, this is just a small few I've talked to, but they said you could even do that on a phone. My kid's going to be in daycare during the day, so I'm not going to be able to Google, they're not going to be able to Google Meet anyway during the day. So I'm hearing lots of different things that just make you think that we could have a really good plan around that, but the survey will drive that.
Just as a side note, I don't have a lot of information yet. I mentioned it to Charlie. Paul was in contact with somebody on a committee at the county level that he's on, but it's a group that is finding that a lot of businesses through the pandemic have had to purchase new equipment for their employees to work at home. So they have a lot of things that I think that they're no longer using. So what they're trying to do is gather up a lot of devices, scrub them, and then look to school districts to see if they have children in need and actually just giving them these devices. So when I have more information, or when Paul does, I will make sure that this woman gets in contact with Jeff Barnes to see if, obviously we would probably have to have our tech department look at them as well and see if there's things that the kids can use and scrub them again. But that would be really nice if we could just have some devices that we could just say, here you go, you can have them.
Pick us, right? I know, because we did do the addendum. The bigger problem is every district. Orchard Park the other day told us their Chromebooks are back ordered till December. So this is a problem, huge problem for us. So for everybody, this isn't just a Lakeshore thing. And even people who say they have technology, they don't have any way to replace the old, and so or just have to have backup plan B, C, D, and E, and still not have enough probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so continuing on the list, technology was one of the sections, and I think we pretty much answered the question that was in there. For loading and unloading the bus, we do have a video up online that shows that. So we will load from the back to the front. We'll have tape on the seats as to where students are supposed to sit. We'll have students that live in the same household together in the same seat, so we can have a little bit more capacity on a bus for students that are living together in the same household. So cohorts, we started with A through J and then K through Z. So what we did, it's not just an alphabetical grouping, it's also a household grouping. So we received the list from Vicki Trim, and all the students are listed by where they live. So even if you have a child that is from a blended family and there's different last names in a house, we know which kids are living in that house. So even if there was a student with the last name of a B and a last name of an L, they'll still be put in the same group. So we started with the high school first and then kind of worked our way back. And talked with Perry the other day, and they're working on that very hard, and they should have I don't want to say the final, but at least a good first run for us to look at some point this week. to just kind of double check to make sure we haven't missed anybody, and we might miss one or two. But parents will be able to give us a call and let us know, and we can make those changes. There have been a couple calls from parents that have said, I know I've got daycare on Monday and Wednesday, Tuesday and Wednesday. Can I have my kid go on Thursday and Friday, and vice versa? So we've had a couple parents call about that. So if that is an issue, we are certainly taking calls, and we'll see what we can do to accommodate people that have those issues. So that is something that we're looking at. PE.
Charlie, regarding transportation, since you just brought this up. So I know there's a survey out asking parents if the children would need transportation in the morning and afternoon, or one or the other.
Right.
Or either, if the parents are going to provide it. How do we account if there are parents who say they're going to drive the kids every day, but then they occasionally need to take the bus? Is there going to be space on a route? Like,
yes, there should still be space, because we have to pretend that all the kids will need to get picked up. So that having kids being dropped off and picked up by parents will actually help provide more spacing on the bus. So we are asking them to make that decision for the semester, but we know that sometimes that won't work out that way. So that should not be an issue. So we're not basing it based on that list. That's giving us a little bit of a cushion.
okay.
Yeah, Mike, I think for me, when we first started talking, before the guidance came out, I didn't even think we'd be able to bring kids to school at all. And then when Perry said we use our full fleet with half the kids, even if they all rode, we'd have it covered. So that made me feel way better, and we could start moving forward, because that was the deciding moment.
Absolutely. Well, so the full fleet, there never are, but where do we stand on bus drivers?
Well, that's
I mean, there are never enough.
Right. There are never enough. And you know what? We always make do, right?
Harry's going to be getting behind the wheel.
I'm going to get my license. Dan's
driver. I was going to say, you all are going to get your license. John, I think you have yours, don't you?
Yes, it's already. Right.
My wife says I am not allowed to drive a bus.
Oh, come on, just once. Just once.
I think we might need to put one of those big signs on a bus and put it by the school. Bus drivers needed to do some advertising. It might be a good second job for somebody. But that's true. I mean, it's going to be the same, because there's a question here about substitutes too. So for teachers, I mean, that is always an issue. One of the things that Christine helped me with today in terms of subs was we looked at all the subs that we have on our list, and she called them to see whether or not they're planning on coming back. So we're still finishing that up. I also emailed the student teaching supervisor at Buffalo State, and we're going to reach out to the other universities, because we have in our policy that if you're working towards your degree, you can get on our substitute list to try and attract even more substitutes into the district. Substitutes are an issue. They were before COVID, and they probably will be during. But again, we will do our best, and we always make it work to make sure that kids are supervised and get what they need. So for PE. So PE is a little bit different. We have to have 12 feet of social distancing for phys ed. So again, half the kids, half the time, two phys ed teachers in the gym, and they'll be doing things to ensure that kids are staying at that level, making sure that if they're using equipment, cleaning it off in between, alternating equipment so that they have time later in the day to make sure that happens. There's a lot of things you can do. Even if you do an aerobic exercise, you can have the kids spaced out 12 feet, and you can do a step kind of an exercise if you need to. So they have a lot of cool activities that they can do to keep the kids safe while they're in phys ed. If you are in band where you have a wind instrument, it's the same concept of keeping 12 feet apart. So that'll be an issue that the music people will work through in terms of how they want to do that with kids. So there could be a little bit of an adjustment there. orchestra, unless you have wind instruments, orchestra, it's still the 6 foot, even though you might need that space anyway to strum a bow. So it will look different for phys ed. And of course, if we can go outside, the more we can go outside when it's nice out, they'll do that more often when they can go outside. Maybe we'll go snowshoeing, and hopefully we'll all be back to normal before that happens. Fire drills. So we will have.
Charlie,
Oh, sorry.
Charlie, before you move on real quick, just a quick question. What about chorus? Is there,
Oh, same thing for chorus. Anything where there's a wind projectile, you have to have a 12-foot distance.
12 foot?
So again, right. So again, that might look a little different also. And so that's one of the things that the music people are going to be working at and looking at and working on their schedules to see how they want to group kids.
It's
Charlie?
spaced out around
But
the
again,
track
half
in
the
an
kids
arc.
half the time, so what's that?
So we're gonna space them out around the track in an arc.
Right.
One of those big ensemble groups. Charlie, you said something about outside for middle high school. Can they actually hold classes outside? Once in a while?
If you're asking my personal opinion, if a teacher wants to take their class outside and social distance them outside, and if they're able to teach outside, I personally don't have an issue with that. We still have to keep safety concerns in mind, right? Because we've got kids outside, but we have kids outside for phys ed all the time. So if somebody said, can I take my kids outside and teach a literature lesson? Personally, I wouldn't have an issue with that. I would just want to make sure that they wash their hands when they come back in, right? So that teacher would have to set up a protocol to make sure that when they come back, they have enough time to do that in order to go back to their next class.
Okay, that was a question that came up yesterday. Okay.
It would
Thank you.
save having to wipe down all the desks.
Yeah, that's right. It's one less contact. But we would have to wipe down all the grass that they touched. But no. Fire drills and lockdown. So fire drills, yes, we still have to do fire drills, and we have to do them in a socially distanced manner. So that's going to be different. So that's something we're going to have to practice a little bit and talk about with our safety committees just to see how that's going to work. The lockdowns, again, we don't want kids huddled up all together, so we just might show them where it is they would go and use dots on the floor. This is where you would sit, away from the door, or away from the window type of thing. So they have an idea of what that is. So unless you're in kindergarten, all these kids have gone through a lockdown drill at least 4 times. So they kind of know what it's all about. And it might be actually a little bit less scary for them because we won't actually have to have them sitting in a corner away from the window. But that's why we're keeping the doors open but locked during the day. So that, again, that'll also help increase the airflow. Let's see. Staff relief. Okay, so let's look at how will we be checking students to support their social and emotional needs when we'll only see them twice per week. Melissa, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Mike, yeah.
Sure. So we do know that our counselors and social workers will be all hands on deck, and during the opening days, we'll work a little bit through this about sorts of things that if a teacher is identifying anything that's standing out that is unique, even though we've only, we'll see these kids probably for the first time in these grade levels, but if something where a student expresses distress of any sort, they'll know who to contact and how to do that. As far as just the general social and emotional learning, they're going to start the school year with a balance of academics. So there's some structure, but at the same time, they'll build in the get to know you activities. They'll build in some good questions or things for kids to talk about. One of the articles we read recently that I'm percolating about is that we want to be cautious of not being too overly over the top on our sensitivity to maybe some social, emotional, or any kind of trauma, only because that sometimes heightens it. So it had me thinking about what might be a nice way to balance some of this. So during those opening days, one of our chunk of time will be that conversation of what do you do if you're sensing something? What are some things we're going to do in our classroom that provide structure, but yet some get to know, team building, class building that's safe and feels structured. So people start feeling comfortable, but then not to overdo and be overly over the top. So that's kind of just in a nutshell. And then we're hoping that our best practices of social and emotional are kicking in anyway, because we've had training in that. Some buildings are lighter than others. And so we'll make sure we have extra conversation there.
Thank you. The next question was about attendance. So we're learning more about how to take attendance on remote days. When we look at a child in the green group, when they're not in school on Thursday and Friday, they will have assignments and things they can do when they're at home. And when they come back to school, or if they're asking questions on that Monday, when they come back to school, that'll show that they were working on the things that they need to over those 2 days, at least for now, since we're not totally virtual with computers at home. So that's one way in which we're looking at to take attendance for kids when they're not physically in the building.
Yeah, and we're learning more through Power School too. They're writing some code that will help us to know what days kids are in person versus remote. And then during that time, we're hoping for a bit more guidance, because we're not alone on this, because even
Right.
though some schools are one-to-one, they're still not having their kids come to class every part of the day because they think their older kids will be babysitting. So they're providing videos that kids can watch and so forth. So we're trying to learn about that as a region and maybe solidify that as a whole of how we're going to do that. So that's to be determined.
Right. So how will we connect with remote students per SCD requirement? So again, Monday will be our day when teachers will have time set aside for students at home to be able to contact them in some way, shape, or form, either through email or through Google, or even through phone if necessary. So that would be a way in which a teacher might be able to answer questions that kids might have on the work that they're doing when they're at home.
We're also looking at if we end up with our schedule still having that end of the day period, that's a help period, that during the week, if I'm a kid who comes on Tuesday, Wednesday, I might know that Thursday, 10th period, I have a Google Meet link. I can go in and ask questions about my work and stuff. So, or some kids may be assigned to that if they're struggling with
Right.
that. So we're just waiting for that schedule to get cemented, and then we'll know more in that area too.
Are fully remote students considered homeschooled? No. Only homeschool students are students that the parents have chosen to homeschool their child for other kinds of reasons, and they would fill out an independent homeschool instruction plan and file that with the district. So in this particular instance, those remote students would not be considered homeschool students, and we would still be responsible for trying to provide the best possible education we can for them while they're remote. Staff related questions. Are we concerned that childcare is going to be an issue that makes it difficult for our faculty to attend school? Sure, that is something that we're talking to with teachers. They are going to have to secure childcare for their kids because they're going to be in school. They have to work 5 days, in school 5 days, even though their children might not be. We've been talking to organizations that we have, in the area, the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, and other organizations to let them know that there's going to be more people maybe accessing, their services. We have a list of the organizations that we do have in the community for people to be able to take advantage of. So that is something that they're going to have to secure, just like other parents in the district that need to look for 3 days a week.
Are you sending that out to people, or how is that Are they gonna find out? I mean, if
Well-
the list is ready, are you gonna send it out?
Yeah, I actually sent that out to the whole staff on a PDF form. So they should all have that list of all the providers around here, but obviously not everybody lives in our district. So if they live in another area, they're going to have to secure that on their own with the resources they have in the area that they're living in.
Can community use that too, or just the staff?
Of course, yeah, it's open to the community.
Okay,
Right. Yeah, they're all organizations that have been around for a long time. A&A Childcare, Lori Bluff, Carolot Child Center, Kids Castle, et cetera, et cetera. So they're all the organizations that are local to the Angola area now anyway, but teachers just might not have known about them as much because they haven't need to use them. So it just wasn't something that they looked at unless they had preschool children that they had daycare for. Educating substitutes on policies and procedures. So that's, as I said earlier, we're working on trying to get a list of substitutes that we know are coming back, and we will develop training for them at some time during the month of August and call them in either in person or virtually to go over all the different policies and procedures that we have and things that they might need to do when they're subbing for us during this time. So that's going to be coming out as soon as we have a list of people that we can call in. If a teacher is sick on Monday, do they need a sub or can they work from home? So right now they would have to ensure if they weren't able to come in because they were sick, that they were able to get what they needed to get done on Monday so that kids can be prepared when they come during the week.
Yeah, if they're sick, they're gonna have to take a sick day. I wouldn't,
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't, we were talking a little bit about it earlier. I wouldn't expect them to do the work from home, but we'd have to figure out if they have the touch points that are designed during the day with kids, if remote families, that we have a plan B for that. So once we get those days structured, we'll have a better feel, but I would just imagine that during the week, then they would have a way to do that. So I just want to be respectful. If you're homesick, then you're sick, and that's fair. And take your sick day, or if you have a sick kid, you can't be doing this. It just doesn't make sense. So that's kind of what I was thinking as we were talking earlier.
Right.
I mean, ultimately our goal is to get, I'm pie in the sky, but ultimately our goal is to get kids into school more. So if Mondays may not be forever, I mean, gosh, I don't know. I don't know what to predict. None of us can, but Mondays might become a school day where we actually start building that into the rotation. So, for now it is helping us to do the very best we can do on the days that kids are here or for the remote kids. But if it evolves and we're able to do more, then that would be part of our slow roll of the process and fill the building.
I'm going to go to the general questions now. We have a couple of them because the other ones are a little bit more internal. Can we get a tour of at least one elementary school to see the clear cubicles in the cafeteria and other safety measures before school starts? Absolutely. To look at any one of the schools, to come and take a look at our construction, what's going on with there. We actually have the green seats and the covers coming into the gymnasium right now. It looks really awesome. So anytime you want to be able to come in and take a look at a classroom, take a look at what's going on, take a look at the buckets, take a look at what's going on with the air exchanger, because that was one of the questions too about air quality. So we have air exchangers, and if I get this wrong, John, please chime in. We have air exchanger system with where it changes the air from outside, brings air in from the outside, changes the air so that there's air circulating in the classrooms pretty much all day long at different intervals.
Let me help you with that one.
Yep.
So there's univents in every classroom. We all know what they look like. They're a big box. They bring in outside air all day long. They run up constantly. What we've done was we've gone so far as to order the highest MERV rating we can for our school districts, rooftop units, air handler units, univents. It's a MERV 13. It's a premium filter. What we want to achieve is as much outside air as we can. They can open all the windows they want as long as it's not the emergency windows. They can run fans in there as long as it's bringing in outside air rather than from, in congested areas. And it's, we've done a pretty darn good job checking all the details, checking the boxes, making sure we've done what we have to do. Our univents are throughout the district are relatively new. Luckily, there's been a project program where we've been changing out univents all along. And our goal is to get 4 air changes in a classroom an hour. And we have all the units that will do that. You want to get 15 CFM per student. Our air handlers are around 800 to 1,000 CFM. Way more than you need for each student. So we're getting that airflow in there. It's clean and we're doing it all right.
Charlie, maybe we could even look at some of those things, the shields and all of that at our retreat next Tuesday.
Sure.
Or the cleaning stuff or whatever. Maybe that can be part of our
Absolutely.
Our agenda to have a little tour.
Sure. Absolutely. Budget status with all the additional anticipated expenses. So John and I talked about this today. We spent $137,610.77 so far on COVID related PPE and other materials that we needed in order to do what we need to do to prepare for COVID and the opening of school.
So what do we anticipate, or can we anticipate what any additional expenses might be for the school year?
Well, I know that when John and I talked, we have enough PPE and cleaning supplies to last us for the year, hope in terms of what we might need for that. It's kind of difficult to anticipate what we might need. I think that John's done a great job. We've got 400 N95 masks, 385 standard face shields, 20 cases of Oxivir concentrated spray bottles. And so there's a whole list of things that we have already in stock and ready to go. We have 8,750 disposable masks. So we're trying to anticipate all the things that we could need in terms of health and safety. And John does a great job of keeping track of that to see if we need to continue to order. He has a pretty good supply chain set up now that he worked hard to have in order for us to be able to get access to materials that we need.
Yeah, but disposable masks will probably be very much unpredictable. You just don't know with the students and staff that have the fabric ones, how often they'll be left at home or forgotten.
Right. Yeah, and we definitely will have those available
Right.
for kids if they forget. The drivers will have a supply of them in case the child forgets to have their mask while they're on the bus. So, yeah.
Everyone needs to know, you can see that's a big hit to John's budget that was not anticipated. And if we need to spend and spend out John's budget, we'll be transferring money from other areas of the budget. So it's important that people understand when we're standing on the brake and we're not increasing costs, there's a reason. It's because we have no idea what we're looking at long term.
Right.
We're 1 month into the school year.
I think we should just take it out of Daryl's budget.
Is there
We
the
did
capital outlay project into any improvements being done here?
What's that, Mike?
Is there any way to fold in the capital outlay project that would be in for this year into any of this?
I don't think so.
Not really. We're tied to $100,000. So, we can't buy things that's got to be construction for the capital outlay. I will add though that John and I talked today, the shields that we bought for the cafeteria, we charged to the cafeteria. So instead of going to John's budget, the cafeteria fund bought those. If we get FEMA reimbursement, we'll reimburse the cafeteria fund, but if not, then the cafeteria will buy that, and that saved John $25,000, I think, in your budget. And then we whacked him for $36,000 for the temperature scanners. So, you know, give with one hand, take with the other.
So Mike, you had a question about budget. So anything in specifically that you needed to? Have
No, it was more a general one of where we stood on things heading into the year, because obviously, as was just said, these were unanticipated expenses when the budget was put together.
Right, and I know that Dan's going to try to put anything he can through FEMA if it qualifies for us to hopefully get some relief.
Right.
Cindy, you had some questions that you had submitted. Did we reach those when with all the other questions, or do you have a couple others?
Nope, you answered them all.
Oh, great.
Nope, you did good.
Look at that. Even a blind squirrel.
So one question before we go off, I think the answer is there though. We're going to plan on meeting in person on Tuesday? I think we should.
Yes, I think we should. I think at this point we are asking parents to send their children to us because it's a safe environment for them. And I think we need to lead by example.
I agree.
I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, I'm in.
I agree too.
So
Christine needs to feed us.
I was just going to say, Christine, let's talk tomorrow.
Food.
do you have anything else? Any other questions that came up that you might want to ask?
Oh, I had one, and I apologize if I missed it before I was able
That's
to.
okay.
Sorry that I was late. If you already addressed it, we can talk about it later. But what is the Raptor Building Visitor Program?
Danny or John, take it away.
That is a security program that basically it's a computer-based program where when a visitor comes into the building, they present their license to the secretary. They scan the license and it runs it against an FBI database. They've enhanced the program so that they can ask those questions on the health questionnaire that the employees will be completing daily and the kids will be doing frequently. But we'll be able to ask those of every visitor. And then once the visitor's license clears the database and they complete that questionnaire, if the visitor is going into the building, they get a visitor badge printed with their picture on it and the date and time and all of that. So it tracks, it also helps us with the social distancing. So if somebody is later found to be positive, we've got a record of who was in the building when. So we looked at it a number of years ago. We didn't go to it, but we started with the secure entryway talking about it again. And we did purchase it through BOCES out of last year's budget so that it wouldn't take a whack out of this year. And it's being implemented over the summer in all the buildings.
So what was the cost for that? And that was aidable?
It's aidable through BOCES.
That was through BOCES, John.
Yeah, I want to say maybe $42,000 sticks in my head, but please don't quote me because, you know, as I'm getting older, things don't stick in my head as well.
And I tried to look at their website a little bit. So that will also tell us if that person, when you're scanning their license, is a registered sex offender, if there's custody issues, that automatically is doing all those things for us in addition now to the safety measures.
Yes, and that will send, we can set that up to send an alert to the principal's phone. So if somebody comes in the high school and one of the secretary there is scanning the license, if it's found to be somebody that shouldn't be in the building, we can set that up that Christiana, Daryl, and Chris Cook all get an alert. Or and I believe we can set it up to go to Evans PD.
Right.
So are we going to somehow communicate to our families? I'm assuming at some point that from this point forward, whenever you do come to our building, that you need to have your driver's license with you?
Yes, yes.
All right.
And I've seen those in action. So like, let's say you have a frequent flyer where a parent that comes in all the time. So once we have the license there, we still want people to bring their license every time. So that is something we're
Okay.
going to drive home, that, please make sure you have your license. I was visiting another school and a mom had their little baby with them, and she was the PTA president. She comes there like every day. So they had her picture and everything, but they let her in. We're going to try not to let that happen. So we really want people to get in the habit of having their ID with them.
Mhm. And then how are we handling, obviously we're asking everybody make an appointment when they come in, but like I said, when, little Johnny forgot his lunch and mom shows up to drop it off, are we just gonna be like, hey, okay, leave it out there, we'll come get it? Or
Right. Well, the great thing is that people have to get buzzed in, right? And at the high school, we've got that extra added security, and we'll have that at the middle school, so they'll be at least contained. And at the elementary school, we'll use the buzz in and maybe just in that way, Jen. Who is it? If I'm dropping something
Right.
off, we'll come out and get it instead of you having to come into the building.
right, that's just my thought. If they're not there for an appointment and they really are just simply dropping something off
Right.
with the kids' needs and they don't need to come in the building, maybe that would be more appropriate, is just to, we'll come out and get it.
So
Right.
just to piggyback on what Jen just said, I know this is going to sound elementary, but we're going to have, is this being listed on the website? Like you need, like, what you need to know, you need your ID, you won't be allowed in the building. You will be, we'll buzz you in or we'll pick up your things. Like,
Right.
Are we just planning on making sure that at least we can say to a screaming father, it's on the website? I mean,
Yes.
without an ID, you
Those,
can't.
visitor signs right on the door too,
We'll have we'll have signage at the doors, and we're going to do a video of it once it comes in and show people the process. So yes, there'll be signage, and people will be aware as much as we can make them aware through robocalls, through the website. People still have to read and pick up their phone. So we'll do our best. And then for people that don't get the message, we'll handle that on a case-by-case basis as they try to come into the building.
Okay, Charlie, another idea. This was brought up yesterday. So there are some parents who want to keep their kids home. They don't want them to come to school for whatever reason. They don't want them to be here. They're worried, whatever. So what's the procedure? They're going to learn remotely. Will the parents have to come and pick up work and bring it home for the kids to do? Also, if the parent after 3 weeks decides, I've had it, I want my kid in school, can they just pick a day and say, I'm bringing him back next Tuesday? I mean, what, what do you have a plan for that, or is that in discussion?
Well, that's a lot of questions, Carla. That's not just one.
Yeah.
No, but I'm only kidding.
It all goes to the
So,
parent
yes,
wanting to keep your kid home.
Right.
That it's all in that category.
So as it says in the plan, we are asking them to make it for a trimester for elementary and semester for middle high, but we know that things could change. So we will talk to parents individually about that. We're not going to ever refuse a child to come back to school, but we're going to want to know exactly what's going on, because it might take a week, if they need transportation, we got to let the teachers know. I mean, so it's not simple, but we are working on a process to be able to work through that kind of a situation.
And then the work pickup, we think we will tie it to lunch pickup and then make it flex towards the end of the day. So if there are parents who are working until 3 or 4, that we might be able to figure that part out. Again, once we're trying to personally call every no that we get to understand the scenario. I also told people if they weren't sure, put a no in there, and then we would call them so we could talk through some of their concerns. So we're trying to do a lot of personal connection with that. At the high school level, like Charlie said, it will be based on probably a lot of where we are in the semester. The high school has half year classes. And if we have someone coming in November, it will just depend on the situation totally, because if they have not been engaged in submitting and doing things, that puts that kid at risk of not learning the standard. But at the same time, if they get into school, they'll learn the, get the standards they need, in that curriculum. So it just will have to be a conversation. It just depends on balance too, how we've balanced it out, and maybe figure out what day they can come on. But I'd rather have them in school. So we'll certainly work towards that.
Thank you.
Does anybody have are there any other questions that we haven't answered yet?
No, I did
Yeah.
have, sorry.
Go ahead, Cindy.
I did have one other question. So with the staff, the teachers their only expectation now, because they're going to be there Monday through Friday, when they go home at the end of the day, they shut down. They are not going to be expected to be answering parent phone calls and emails at night when they're home, or are they going to be expected to do that still?
I would just ask them to do what they've always done. So if there are people who that's what they do. They sit down, they call people and email, but that isn't anything I've ever expected anybody to do. It's just some of us, that's what we do. I called a parent the other night at 5:30 from home, but no, there isn't expectation for Google Meets. There is, kids have to know if you're remote. I told them even during COVID, because they were burning out. I said, no one asked you to stay up till 10 o'clock and answer kid emails. You can also say, if you send me an email after this time, I will try, but otherwise you'll get it in the morning. And so, yeah, I agree with you, Cindy. Self-care is really important in taking that break, and we'll continue to encourage that.
Okay, yeah, because I think that was huge problem, that teachers were 24/7 trying to answer things, and that was, I think, too overwhelming.
It was a never-ending day.
Yeah, then they never shut down, so.
Good point.
Anyone else? Anyone have any other
child,
questions?
I don't want to say child, but yes, I do. One last one about the masks. If a child absolutely refuses, like and gives a really hard time about wearing a mask, they just don't want to do it. Is there a procedure for the teacher to call the administrator or to send the child down to but he he's not going to have a mask on because he's refusing to wear it. So how, is that being thought out?
Yes, it is being thought out, and the teacher would have to call the office, and we would have somebody go talk with the child. If we need to, bring them to the office, call the parent, and explain again what they need to do in order to be in school and to be in person, and work with the family and work with the child so that they stay in school, because this is not something that you can just decide I don't want to do. This is what we need to do.
Okay.
So it'll be on a case by case.
That was another question from yesterday.
Yeah, there are kids from the summer that, physically, medically, just masks are uncomfortable for them, right? So they've learned to wear shields though, and I've asked the teachers several times, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel safe? Yes, we social distance, the shield is low enough, and the kid is happy. And so that was the response one of the teachers gave. And so, we also will try to accommodate if it's maybe a special need of your own, right? Just like if a teacher says, I feel suffocated or whatever it is, then what can I get you so that you can social distance, feel comfortable? That's why we have all these different kinds of shields. We ordered these, we call them like kind of the cone of shame because they kind of go like this. But a teacher said, I'd rather have that than have my breath coming out below, even with my mask on. She's like, rather do this. I feel it protects the kids better. And then also my shield would never, if I bent over, it's not hitting things and stuff like that. So we're just going to have to work through that.
Supposed to wear a mask with the shield?
If you can't social distance, yes, because it's not sealed. That's the way we understood it, but I would certainly take different advice on that if I have that wrong, but that's the way we've read it. That
Did we order the cones from the veterinarian?
We did not, but we have names for all of them. We just kind of joke because John, we have to dig those out so we can model for those because I haven't seen one and I'm trying to visualize how it hooks because it's not like right here, but it is.
I think next Tuesday would be a great time for that.
All right.
When they come in for their visit, we'll have all the fun stuff laid out that they can see.
I know, we'll do a fashion show with the shield on. How long does it take you to wipe off 8 desks? Go. And we'll time you and we'll have like Olympics.
What, only related to next Tuesday, I could certainly look it up. What time are we starting and is the meeting first and then the retreat after?
Christine
think
just
we-
left, but I believe.
I think we start the retreat at 5 and then the meeting is at 7. So I think we'll start the retreat at Christine. Yes, no, we start the retreat at no.
The regular meeting's at 4, I believe, and then the retreat's at 5.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
2 quick things. You're going to get the temperature check video from both Melissa and I, because I just sent it out to everybody and then realized Melissa had already scooped me. And then I just wanted to wish Kathleen a happy birthday.
yeah.
Oh, yep. I was going to do that before we close. Happy birthday, Kathleen.
Thanks, Dan.
So let's sing happy birthday
Happy
twice.
birthday.
Let's sing happy birthday twice and pretend we're washing our hands because that's what you need to
Oh.
do. Not for hand.
Okay, please don't.
No, we-
I don't want my happy birthday recorded. This is recorded to forever be watched. All right. So with that, does anybody have anything else? No, we're good. All right. Well, then before we sign off, I am really looking forward to seeing everybody actually in person next week.
me too.
May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So
So
moved.
moved, Bill.
I'll second.
Chris.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you,
very
everybody.
much for your time.
Night.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Have a good night.
Turning